Hi, everybody. It's Jamie. I am coming to you with kind of a special episode today. I had a conversation recently with Sister Monica Clare. She was a guest on the show for episode number 10, and she is going to be a guest for our first ever live online event on Sunday, September 25th. And so in preparation for that event, I wanted to chat with her and give you guys a sense of who she is and why you might want to come and attend the event. Maybe you listen to her story. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you have no idea who she is. Just to give you a little intro, Sister Monica, she is a pretty radical, progressive nun. She lives in New Jersey, but up until her mid-40s, she was living in Hollywood, struggling, striving to become an actor, working in improv, and also doing advertising work for the movie business. But she was unhappy, I think is the best way to say it. She didn't feel she belonged. She felt like she was in the wrong place, frustrated and basically kind of faking it. And then she decided to start listening to her heart and her mind and started researching a new way of being in the world. And that led her to a religious life. And so the whole point of this event that we're going to have is to offer Sister Monica up as an example of someone who's taken this journey from living a life where she was unhappy and didn't feel she belonged to making a leap, making a change, and how she did that, what that journey looked like for her as a point of inspiration and guidance for the rest of us. So it's sort of funny to bring a nun on for real talk and life advice because most of us don't ever hear from a nun or talk to a nun. But she is just one of the warmest, most just real, genuine people that I have met in my whole life. And I've just felt really grateful to have kind of stumbled on her doorstep and made the first episode with her. And now to have her back as the first guest for this podcast, I just feel like it's kind of cosmic and makes all the sense in the world. So this episode is just a short conversation with Sister Monica to give you like a sense for her, a taste of what she's like, and a sense for what the event will be. And I hope you enjoy it. If you want to buy tickets to the event, you can. The link to tickets is in the show notes. The tickets are $9, and you can get a free ticket if you are a patron of the show or you become a patron of the show by September 23rd. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Sister Monica Clare. I am really excited that we're going to have the chance to spend some time together with other people live in the room on September 25th. And I wanted to, for the folks who are not familiar with your story, which was episode 10 of the podcast, if you could just say what this major life change is that you went through and kind of the highlights.
Sure. I changed my life from being a very conventional single woman in Los Angeles working in movie advertising to being an Episcopal nun in a community of nuns in Mendham, New Jersey. So I went from Hollywood to New Jersey. It was something that I had actually been hiding my whole life, was that I wanted to be a nun. And so it took me to the age of 46 to complete that journey and arrive in what I call the promised land, which is really a life where I'm living more into my actual values, my actual personality, and finally being able to be myself and not kind of mask and pass and hide.
And since most people who might come to the event are not going to become a nun or into religious life, I'm curious what sort of things you feel like we might talk about at the event that are universal, that are relatable to anyone who wants to move from maybe the unreal to the real, or the not belonging so much to feeling that you belong to yourself and community.
I really think a lot of the experiences that I've had is universal in terms of sorting out who we really are as opposed to who our family tells us we're supposed to be, who our friends tell us we're supposed to be, our culture, the world. I think both men and women can relate to the dilemma of being forced into traditional gender roles. My story really has a lot to do with that as well, because becoming a sister meant that I had to reject the traditional female roles that had been placed on me of being a wife and a mother. And I had to really get strong in my authentic self to reject those and say, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm drawn to. And that is a really unpopular thing to say in most cultures.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
You shared some resources over the time that we've known each other about how you came to insights and revelations for yourself. And maybe you can just mention one or two of those now, and we can go more into that when people come to the event.
Yeah. Really, therapy was huge for me because therapy started me down the path of determining what I actually like and don't like, and what is triggering to me, what's not, instead of just pretending I was fine with everything. It got me out of the path of people pleasing, which I had been born and bred to people please from day one as a Southern female. And I didn't realize that I could live without having to do that. So going to therapy really started me down the path toward finding the authentic self that I didn't even have any clue that there was such a thing as the authentic self. The first time I ever heard that phrase, authentic self, was when I went to Al-Anon, which is a program for families and friends of alcoholics and addicts. I have a lot of addicts and alcoholics in my life, in my upbringing. And that was where I first heard the phrase authentic self. And I heard people talking about trying to get out of the pattern of people pleasing and rescuing and caretaking. And my therapist was working with me at the same time on repopulating my life with different people instead of having these sort of controlling people who just sort of bossed me around in my life. She encouraged me to switch those friends out, to stop saying yes to lunch invitations and stuff like that. And I cannot possibly overemphasize how life-changing that was for me, to surround myself with people who reinforce my authentic self instead of causing me to hide it. And also, over the years, I've had a spiritual collective around me of not necessarily just people who go to church, but people who are spiritual but not religious, people who are, involved in all different sorts of faiths. And those people have been really supportive and uplifting. In a secular world, I think it was really important to me to surround myself with a spiritual support network.
Well, I really look forward to going into this more.
Me too.
But I wanted to also talk about, you have this pretty massive following.
Yeah.
On different social media accounts.
Yeah.
Most notably TikTok. And I just wanted to hear from you, why you think maybe that's happened, and also the kinds of questions that people have asked you that you found surprising.
One of the stories that I tell is that all my life, up until a few years ago, I had a friend that I had known since age 6 or 7, and he constantly told me how boring I am. You're so boring. You don't want to do anything fun, blah, blah, blah. And so that was my identity that I had been given by this other person. When we stopped being friends, I got on TikTok. I had been on Instagram and Facebook. Even as a sister, we're still allowed to be on social media. And I started with the TikTok thing because a friend of mine from Los Angeles said, you need to get on TikTok. They have a lot of cat videos. So that was the gateway drug for me, was cat videos, because I'm a cat lady. And I thought, this identity that I had been given, that I was so boring and quirky and odd, I thought, well, if people are starting to look at my videos, because I was getting a couple hundred views on these funny videos I posted about this turkey that was attacking our convent and terrorizing us. And I thought, if people are watching the videos, I'll put out some informational stuff there too. And maybe a couple of Episcopalians will, it'll raise awareness that nuns and monks exist in the Episcopal Church. The awareness is just about zero that we exist. And much to my shock, people started watching those videos and becoming really curious about our lives as sisters. They actually thought my sense of humor was funny. I always thought, I just have a weird sense of humor, and very few people get it. But people were getting it, and they were laughing, and they were leaving these great comments and asking a lot of great questions. And the momentum just started to build. And I had posted a video about, TikTok making me want things I can't have, like otters and a whole bunch of kittens, because there's so many of those videos on there. And I was thinking, I can't have all these pets. It's not possible. So I posted a video about that, which got a lot of views, like over 100,000 views at first. And I couldn't believe people thought it was funny. I couldn't believe people were connecting with me as a sister, because sometimes sisters in the religious life can be a little off-putting, and we could be triggering to people who've had a bad experience in Catholic school,
Right.
So I was really encouraged, and I realized most of the people who were responding to my videos were Gen X women, and then it became millennial and zillennial women. And I think that the reason it probably caught on is people like the quirky sense of humor, which I'm so grateful for. I mean, that's really affirming for me. And I think also because I try to deliver a positive message. And in the middle of the pandemic, I think people really need to laugh.
Yeah.
And have a lighthearted experience on social media. And they also need to hear something that's optimistic, really hopeful about the future. And I think most of them are spiritual but not religious, or they've had religious trauma. And to hear that God actually loves them and that there is a compassionate set of denominations out there that's not preaching hate and not excluding the LGBTQ plus community, that's something people I really feel were extremely thirsty for, especially in these really divided times.
Yeah.
Because I really found that people, they want something. They want to believe in something bigger than themselves, but they don't want to go toward religion because they feel like it's not safe, it's dangerous. And for them to say, oh, I can have a spiritual life without becoming one of those people that preaches hate, I think that's refreshing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think is worthy of note is that you specifically chose to become an Episcopalian nun because they are welcoming of all people.
Yes.
Very specifically LGBT. And I don't know if you can kind of just speak to that, because I guess there's a lot of misconceptions potentially, because people think by looking at you that you are a Roman Catholic nun.
Yeah, I mean, I found that the public perception of religion is really sort of monolithic. They either think religion or Christianity is either Roman Catholic or fundamentalist. They think there's nothing else. And the reason I chose the Episcopal Church is because a Roman Catholic nun told me that my liberal political beliefs didn't really mesh with the Roman Catholic Church, but she said, you sound like an Episcopalian. And I, like most people, had no idea that the Episcopal Church had nuns, because they're very few and far between, always have been, actually. We've never been a huge force in the Episcopal Church, but we're here and we're still doing work. So that Roman Catholic nun directed me very well and very wisely toward a belief system that really, really meshes with everything that I believe in. I had made a decision when I was in college that I was never going to sit in church and pretend to believe things that made me really uncomfortable. Like, I just could not believe that gay people were sinners and they were going to hell. Even when I was a little kid, I didn't believe that. And I thought, I'm not going to pretend that that's okay. And the Episcopal Church is very left-leaning. I mean, of course, there are Republicans in the Episcopal Church too, but it's much more central, not as divided and polarized as the rest of the country seems to be right now. There seems to be more collaboration between the political parties within church, working together to address, food insecurity and homelessness and things like that together. And I saw a bumper sticker the other day that said, Episcopalians, we worship like Catholics and we think like hippies. I thought, that's so perfect that's my personality. I really love the traditionalism of the church. I love the candles and the vestments and the flowers and the incense. I love all that traditional sort of mystical stuff. But I also have a real passion for social justice and for changing unfair systems that oppress people and exclude people. So it was a perfect fit, really.
Well, there's so much more I want to talk to you about when we are together on the 25th. I am curious about the day that you learned that the Oprah Daily, which is Oprah Winfrey's, newsletter, was going to highlight you, and what that was like, and to be beautifully photographed in the convent. And also the spread in the New York Times, really about your radically refreshing work, but also about just more of the intimate details of how you made the transition that you did and what it's like now. I know you are Sister Superior, which means basically you're the CEO of the convent.
Yeah.
There's so much I want to discuss.
Great.
But we will leave it until then, and we'll see each other in a few weeks with all the rest of the folks who are coming.
Great. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, Sister Monica.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
So that's it for this episode. Again, you can buy tickets to the event. The link is in the show notes. Tickets are $9. You can also get 25% off the ticket price if you become a subscriber to our newsletter before September 23rd. And if you are a patron of the show or you become a patron of the show before September 23rd, you will get a link to get a free ticket. So either way, we would all love for you to be there. And thanks for listening to If You Knew Me. This podcast is produced by me, Jamie Younger, and my husband, Pete Herkmans. We will be back with a normal episode of the show next week. Until then.